Hey guys, and welcome back to the Geek Box, and welcome to today's first episode of Marked on the Geek Box. Here on Marked, we take pay-per-views and anything that's like that, and we break it down into segments like matches inside the pay-per-view, and then we give each one a mark just like in school. Then at the end we get an overall mark and find out what grade this entire pay-per-view got. So we're starting off with 2019's TLC pay-per-view. So this is going to be focused on just the main card, as there was only one match in the pre-show, which I didn't actually see myself, as I started at midnight here when the main card started. So that's what I'm going to be doing the marking on. Well, let's get into it. So starting us off, we've got the New Day versus the Revival. So obviously the New Day is Kofi Kingston and Big E, as Xavier Woods is unfortunately still injured, but they took part in a ladder match, and well, overall it was a good match and it had some really good spots in it, although it was littered with the odd botch here and there, and some of the parts of it were quite creative, which you'd expect from two teams of this magnitude. And obviously bringing the ladders in as well, you've always got an element of ladders being broken, dropped, thrown, etc. But overall, for a ladder match, I don't think it was, well, it wasn't definitely in that like top 5 ladder matches I've ever seen, as obviously some ladder matches in the past have been absolutely iconic. But it was a good match, and it did hold your attention all the way through as well, and kept you rooting for which team was actually going to get there. There were some spots as well that was done on the outside in regards to the ladder and the barrier, etc. But again, nothing too big really to go after. But as an overall match, well, I'm going to have to give this one a grade of a B. As I said, it wasn't the greatest ladder match, but as a match in itself, it did hold quite well. So it was an enjoyable thing to watch and a great way to open up the show. Then second, we move on to Alistair Black versus Buddy Murphy in just a singles match. This was a match that actually had a nice bit of build up over a couple of weeks before going to it. Nothing too massive, really, just Buddy Murphy was the one that knocked on Alistair Black's door, so he responded. There had a few scuffles in between, but this came down to the match itself. I've always been a fan of Buddy Murphy, not massively a fan of Alistair Black, but then I didn't see Alistair Black in NXT, so I didn't really have much context to go on until really this is the first proper match I've watched of his. And it's one of the best matches of 2019, easily. One of my favourite matches I've watched actually in years, easily. It was incredibly high paced, it was well built, they told a great story, which is something that's really missing these days, I think, in the WWE circuit. And starting off right from Alistair Black doing his flip and roll into the ring and landing cross-legged sat opposite Buddy Murphy at the start was just added a great feel to it to begin with, and both these stars are so well matched to each other. I'm hoping this turns into a feud that lasts for quite a while. I mean, I would be happy if it's done with not too many matches in between for it to carry on through to WrestleMania, as they both have the same sort of style of fighting, but with their little tweaks they put on it and how quickly they can change the match over. For example, Black absolutely dominating throughout the match one part, and then all it took was he jumped up on the top rope and ran across. Buddy Murphy caught his leg as he was going across to the apron and slammed his head into the ring post and then dropped him down onto the steel steps, and then just took over the match for a good while. There were spots all around the outside. We got to see Alistair Black's jacket being taken, and Buddy Murphy went to wear it, threw the jacket at Black, missed, and managed to hit Jerry Lawler in the face on commentary, which was an absolute added bonus to the whole match, even if it was by accident. I think the whole thing as a wrap round, watching the reversals, how the moves flowed with each other, and that it kept you suspended all the time throughout the match. It was, for me, what I consider a proper class of what people should watch when they think about developing a match and how they want a match to flow before they go and do their own. I mean, also I'm not a professional wrestler myself, but I watch something like that and get engrossed in it. I can see there's a lot of things there that people can learn from that they can put into their matches. Also, the end came after a great exchange where they both exchanged kicks and punches all over each other before Alistair Black hitting Black Mass, kicking Buddy Murphy right in the head and knocking him out. But the whole match itself was a great experience. We also have to ignore the fact that Alistair Black smashed his nose in part of the match and bloodied it, and two members of the commentary team did their absolute best to try and not point out the fact that he was bleeding, whilst very comically Jerry Lawler was doing nothing but pointing out the fact he was bleeding, which probably didn't go down too well out the back, so that was definitely an added extra for it. But this match has to be definitely given an A+. Like I said, it was one of the best matches I've seen in a long time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've actually watched the match back a couple of times as well, and I've enjoyed watching it, even knowing what's going to happen with it, which is just a sign of a great match overall. So that leads us on then to the Viking Raiders Open Challenge. Now, this didn't really have any build-up like most of TLC didn't. We found out the last moment through social media that they were going to be doing an open challenge, and well, it was answered by the OC. They came out, run off a bit of a chat about the fact that they're the only ones that ever beat the Viking Raiders and they're the best tag team in the world, etc. Came down. The match was good as a basic tag team match. There was lots of exchanges, lots of tag team work by both teams, switching between who was in dominating and who wasn't. A few botch spots in it, which seems to become the theme of this pay-per-view. In particular, one where there was, I think Lars did a handspring back elbow, and it just got nowhere near either members of the OC, and it just looked terrible because the OC didn't position themselves for it. But apart from that, it was a good, decent overall match. I'd still say, just because of the quality of both these teams, I'd have to grade it a B still. Could have possibly been higher because they are, for like their standards, a great pair of teams, and they did have a great standard tag team match. But the only thing that brought the grade down a bit for me was there was a double count out for the finish, and for a TLC pay-per-view match, having a double count out just really seemed like a bad move. So yeah, we'll stick with a B for that one. Then off the back of that, there was a spot at the end of this where there was 4 people who were supposed to be lucky people that won a chance to sit ringside and eat KFC by a KFC competition. Though for those that actually had any general inside knowledge of the business, very quickly identified there were actually 4 independent wrestling stars from a local organisation that had been advertised beforehand. But basically did a spot where they've dragged out the table, swiped off all the food off the table apart from the chicken that was saved by the 4 people sat there, and they did a to and fro spot until eventually the Viking Raiders managed to power slam Carl Anderson through the table, ending that. It then led on to King Corbin versus Roman Reigns. Now, this was, as a match, it has a breakdown. Now, they both had their own parts of the match, just a normal singles match that I really didn't find massively interesting. I'm not a fan of Roman Reigns, I just don't like his style. But it went through in the end. King Corbin got beat down, Reigns came back after him, and then just as he did a full run around the entire ring to spear Corbin through the barricade, Dolph Ziggler appeared literally out of nowhere with a super kick, knocked him down. That then led to a 2-on-1 beatdown for a while. Then, in traditional fashion, Roman Reigns fought back. He fought through the security that Corbin had with him as well. And then eventually he built up a whole load of steam, and then the Revival came out as part of King Corbin's entourage and attacked Reigns as well. Eventually he fought back through them, and then he turned around and Dolph Ziggler, literally in comical style, just threw a steel chair in his face, and because it was from off camera it looked brilliant. Reigns just turned around and just this chair just bounced off his face, and it was hilarious. The whole beatdown itself was done brilliantly. It's just how it should be, an old school numbers mugging where they just can't survive it, until eventually they all completely beat him down, and then Baron Corbin nailed the end of days onto the steel chair, and 1, 2, 3 took the pinfall over Roman Reigns. So this one's going to go on for a while. Hopefully they're going to build up a little bit more. They did a good build up to this match, but it was, I think this is more childish. I think this is stuff that's aimed more towards a younger audience. Things like attacking Roman Reigns and taking a mick out of him being called the big dog, and having somebody dressed up as a dog, and they're pouring dog food on his head. They had a little bit in the match where they attacked one of the technicians in the ringside area, and then they went to put dog food on him just like they did with Reigns, but Reigns then did a drive-by and knocked Dolph Ziggler and King Corbin down. But overall I'm going to give this match a C+, just because the match itself didn't interest me. The after bit did, with obviously Ziggler attacking him, etc., and how well that was done. But the match itself should have been the part that really carried the excitement. The beatdown at the end should have supplemented that, I think, and it didn't. So it was more about that beatdown became the actual story and the exciting part. So C+ is where we're going to go with that one. Then we go on to Bray Wyatt versus The Miz. Obviously, this is Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt versus The Miz, which we've never seen before. And Bray Wyatt came out. It was brilliant. He came out. He did this whole walked out like, oh wow, so happy to see everybody. It just played in perfectly to what we've seen in the Firefly Funhouse. He came out celebrating the fact that he was the champion. He went out for a selfie, or kept getting back out the ring and holding the belt up so people would cheer him. It just fitted in perfect to what Bray Wyatt was. The Miz the entire time just dead staring him down. When the match actually started, it was good because Bray was sort of like, it started off the whole match with Bray Wyatt literally going, oh, easy Miz, easy, and the Miz just attacked him over and over and over. You saw the bits with Bray where he flickered between the two personalities, where every so often his smile would just drop and he'd attack for a moment and then he'd go back to being happy again. It rolled over like that pretty much. The Miz, I think, should have been a lot more aggressive than he was in the match. I mean, he was fairly aggressive, but because Bray's supposed to have done this whole thing of, threatened his house, done the whole things with the dolls and that, with his child, and threatened his family, etc. I mean, if this had gone to a DQ finish for the Miz with Bray Wyatt winning, I think it would have made more sense. So the Miz went too far, but it didn't. It just went to, he attacked Bray for the good while. Bray caught him on the outside after throwing him into the tech area, dragged him up onto the rail, and whilst his legs were still being held up, hit him with his sister Abigail, got into the ring. Then after that, Bray stood in the ring waiting for the Miz. Just before the count out could happen, the Miz slid in the ring, stood up, Bray just grabbed him from the ropes and hit him with his sister Abigail again and pinned him. Then after that, they had a whole post section which made up for part of this match as well. The Fiend came up on the Titantron, and Bray did this brilliant bit where he was just looking at him, smiling, like amazed that he was there, and then he just goes, yeah, I'll do it. And this is just after he said to the Miz, like, don't worry, I'll forgive you, after he knocked him out. And he goes outside, throws at the apron with a massively comical whee, which got everybody laughing. And then he pulled out the giant Fiend mallet from the Firefly Funhouse, the same as what was used in Hell in a Cell, and that he used to crush Rambling Rabbit, etc. And then as he went to hit the Miz with it, the lights all went down as well when the Fiend turns up, and he started going, he's here, all excited. Then when the lights were mostly down, you saw there was a figure in the corner of the ring wearing a hoodie with its hood up, run across, did this running knee, and it was Daniel Bryan. And basically Daniel Bryan knocked him down a few times, pulled off his hood, and it turned out that he's had all his hair cut and his beard cut, and he looks like Daniel Bryan from 2011-2012, or the American Dragon Daniel Bryan. He then grabbed the mallet and went to hit Bray Wyatt with it, and in turn the lights all just died out, and when they came back on, Bray Wyatt was gone. So that match for me tied up as a B+ in total, just because the match itself felt quite lackluster the way it was done, unfortunately. But I also get why they did the hold back, because the more fantastic Bray Wyatt seems, the less impressive it seems then when he turns into the Fiend and becomes this whole monster. But the whole after section with Daniel Bryan and the Fiend on the screen, etc., was a brilliant addition and really pushed the story forwards again for both The Miz and Daniel Bryan along with Bray Wyatt. So B+ is where I'm going to land with this one. And then we move on to the tables match, Rusev versus Bobby Lashley. Now, considering this is the match that's had the most build up, there's not really a lot to say with this. Rusev came out and fought first of all like a man who looked like he was peeved with his opponent. Just wild swings and punches and kicks and everything. Then after the first 5 minutes, it just settled into a traditional back and forth between the two of them, knocking each other down. Lots of tables set up, shots that were thrown that missed. There was one good spot where Rusev literally launched Lashley off the end of the ring, and he managed to get thrown and still leap at the same time and jump over a table that was on the outside. It was quite an impressive way to dodge the table, actually. But apart from that, it was a pretty standard table match. It finished with, after a couple of botches, Lana jumped on Rusev's back. Lashley then speared into Rusev as Lana got clear. The table didn't break because he didn't actually lift him up to put him into the table. So then he grabbed him, did an overhead belly to belly, which then smashed the table on the other side of the ring, therefore making Bobby Lashley the winner. And I'm going to give this one a C. As I said, it was just a standard tables match, not very exciting. It was sort of going through all the motions until they got to the point where they actually broke the table properly. And there wasn't anything that exciting about it, which was horrible really, because I love Rusev. He's one of my favourite wrestlers. And I don't feel like this match really allowed him to showcase how good he really is. And then that moved us on to our main event of the evening, which was obviously Charlotte and Becky Lynch versus the Kabuki Warriors. Now, there's two tales that we know now, looking back on this. This match was a good match, filled with a lot of spots and inventive things. Becky being tied up to a ladder so she couldn't move. Charlotte, they attempted to lock her into one of the office chairs using a kendo stick. There was a lot of stuff in the ring with suplexes onto ladders, etc. But there was something that was amiss in the match. The two things that mainly hit this match down were the fact that all four women seemed to run out of steam after about 10 minutes. This match felt like it literally went on 10 minutes, way too long to what it should have. If it had been a shorter match, it would have been much more action-packed and really done the job. And secondly, as we know now, what seemed like Kairi Sane having some difficulties like navigating parts of the match is actually that it's believed that she's got a concussion that she sustained part of the way to the match. So kudos to her, she actually powered through that concussion to finish the match. But there were several things like Charlotte went to give her a spear, Kairi didn't just go down, she just stood there. Then Charlotte went to give her a powerbomb and Kairi wasn't really aware of what's going on at that point. You could tell she was being lifted up. Charlotte had to power her up and finish the move. I think Becky and Asuka figured out earlier on what was happening, and they were able to signal to each other something was wrong, but Charlotte wasn't really given the message until right at the end of the match. So it was a bit of a mess up, a lot of botched spots in this as well. I think some of those botches actually may have assisted in Kairi's having the problem in the first place. They haven't really put down where she got the concussion, but she hits her head a good number of times in that match, the poor thing. So with all that put aside though, it was the first ever women's tag team TLC match, which was great to see that they've put that platform out. But I think the match overall I'm going to give a B. As I said, there was a lot of good exciting spots in it, but for a match happening at the end of the card, it needed to have something more going for it, I think, to keep the attention and excitement of the audience. So I think B is a fair grade that we can wrap the whole thing with. But for the actual pay-per-view itself as a whole, there were some other little backstage segments there, like with Roman Reigns and King Corbin still fighting and the Street Profits, etc., which led to a brawl at the end of the pay-per-view, which resulted in Roman Reigns spearing King Corbin off the upper tier of the audience and down into a whole group of people, which just didn't interest me personally. I think it was a badly placed spot. I don't know if they chose to put this spot there because they wanted to pull attention away from the ring to deal with Kairi, then I get that, and that's cool that they did that so they could treat her straight away. But if this was the original plan, then I think that sucks, because those women deserve to have that time after the match to celebrate if that was the case, and to really put their hands up and get the attention and applause they deserved for having that main event match and taking another step forward for women inside of wrestling. But for the entire pay-per-view itself, I'm going to give it a B+, as the fact that there was In general, all the matches, I'd say, apart from the last one, were good in their own way. The last match was good in its own way, but it wasn't enough by then, or just people were getting tired and they wanted something to perk them up and it didn't. Obviously, Alistair Black versus Buddy Murphy was the absolute king of this pay-per-view. It was the absolute gem. It was an amazing match, and that's what helped bring the score up to what it is. But that's my overall coverage and thoughts, obviously, for TLC 2019. So for those of you that have seen it now, let me know what you think in the comments below, and what sort of grade you think. Do you agree with the grades that I've given? Do you think some of the matches should have been higher or lower? And what would you have liked to have seen in those matches? Well, thanks for joining me here on Marked, and of course, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all the latest content. And if you like this video, please feel free to hit that like button below. Every bit of love and support always helps with the channel's growth. And as always, I'll see you out there.